What caused the worst economic depression in U.S. history? Not one factor can be held accountable for the Great Depression. This depression was the result of a combination of domestic and worldwide conditions, both economical and political. Historians and economists have agreed upon five major economical and political events to represent the main causes of the Great Depression. The stock market crash of 1929. Many believe erroneously that the stock market crash that occurred on Black Tuesday, October 29, 1929, is one of and the same with the Great Depression. In fact, it was one of the major causes that led to the Great Depression. 2 months after the original crash, in October, stockholders had lost more than $40 billion. Bank failures. Throughout the 1930s, over 9,000 banks failed. Bank deposits were uninsured, and thus, as banks failed, people simply lost their savings. Surviving banks, unsure of the economic situation and concerned for their own survival, stopped being as willing to create new loans. The situation leading to less and less expenditures. Business failure. With the stock market crash and the fears of further economic woes, individuals from all classes stopped purchasing items. These then led to a reduction in the number of items produced and thus a reduction in the workforce. As people lost their jobs, they were unable to keep up with paying for items they had bought through installment plans, and their items were repossessed. More and more inventory began to accumulate. The unemployment rate rose above 25%, which meant, of course, even less spending to help elevate the economic situation. American economic policy with Europe. As business began failing, the government created the Smoot-Hawley tariff in 1930 to help protect American companies. This charged a high tax for imports, thereby leading to less trade between American and foreign countries, along with other economic relations. Drought conditions. While not a direct cause of the Great Depression, the drought that occurred in the Mississippi Valley in 1930 was of such proportion that many could not even pay their taxes or other debts and had to sell their farms for no profit to themselves. By 1933, millions of Americans were out of work. Bread lines were a common sight in most cities. Hundreds of thousands roamed the country in search of food, work, and shelter. People waited in lines at the unemployment office all day, lines wrapped around buildings, and if you were lucky enough, you would be interviewed to determine your needs. People traveled to different locations willing to do any type of job. All they worried about is how they would be able to provide a meal for their families. Housing was also a problem. People were forced out of their home due to not being able to pay rent. The government set aside land that families could establish tents and small communities for the homeless. The conditions were very poor. Everything was dirty and people were unable to bathe. Franklin D. Roosevelt introduced Progress between 1933 and 1938, designed to help America pull out of the Great Depression by addressing high rates and unemployment and poverty. The decline in the industrial prices in 1930s caused business failures and unemployment. The National Industrial Recovery Act was formed in order to boost the declining prices, helping business and workers. FDR signed the Glass-Steagall Act, which barred commercial banks from becoming involved in the buying and selling of stocks. It prevented many of irresponsible practices that led to the stock market. The same law established the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation, a system which insured the accounts of individual depositors. Institutions are required to place signs at their place of business stating that deposits are backed by the full faith and credit of the United States government. The Civilian Conservation Corps set unemployed young men to work on projects like forest prevention, flood control, and the improvement of national parks and wildlife preservation. The Congress of Industrial Organization, led by John L. Lewis, set out to create unions to shield Americans from social insecurity, including public housing, universal health, and unemployment.